Mysterious restricted catacombs under Columbus, South Carolina, incredibly dangerous caves, meeting places for humans sacrificing cults. These are 10 secret underground locations no one dares to enter. The Eagle's Nest in Florida, not a place you want to go for your first scuba dive. It's notorious for being one of the most dangerous scuba diving spots in the world. Now, from the surface, it looks like a small pond, a typical sinkhole you might see in your average park, and the dive starts off looking relatively straightforward, but as you descend, the challenges begin to pile up. The water gets darker the deeper you go, visibility drops off quickly. The cave system itself is this tangled mess of narrow, twisting passageways that can easily disorient even experienced divers. The cave system is incredibly deep, diving down more than 300 feet, and the water just turns pitch black. There's a huge risk of what's known as depth intoxication or narcosis, where the deep pressure affects your brain and judgment, making it harder to think clearly, which is a no-go for being deep underwater. On top of that, the cave passages are narrow and twisty, making navigation extremely difficult. At least 10 professional divers have died while exploring Eagle's Nest. In Buckinghamshire, England, there's a seemingly ordinary church and mausoleum. Surprise, surprise, it's not that ordinary. This site, surrounded by peaceful countryside, is actually the entrance to Hellfire Caves, a big network of tunnels and chambers carved out by hand. The caves were built by Sir Francis Dashwood in the 18th century. Dashwood was known for his wealth and some controversial activities. He had plenty of money and influence, and decided that he was going to expand on the existing network of caves beneath his property. His goal was to create a secret underground space that would serve as a dwelling for his infamous Hellfire Club and their secretive gatherings. The Hellfire Club members were rumored to engage in some pretty dark activities. Some of it was said to be a little scandalous, but the more extreme stories were that they practiced strange rituals, possibly even involving human sacrifice. One of the club's members, Paul Whitehead, was said to have burned all the records of the club's activities on his deathbed, so we'll never really know what went on down there. You can actually go on tours of these caves today, and not that you'd be allowed to, but you probably wouldn't want to spend the night there alone, given the rumors about its past. Unless you're like me, in which case you'd just jump at the opportunity. Beneath the streets of Columbia, South Carolina, are a series of catacombs, and no one is exactly sure what they were built for. What we do know is that they're completely off limits, but that doesn't stop urban explorers from sneaking their way in anyway. And what they're met with are a bunch of eerie, dark, dank tunnels. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Columbia was growing rapidly, and like many cities, it needed more space. This led to the construction of a network of passages and rooms beneath the city. They were originally supposedly built for practical reasons, mainly storage, but over time, rumors began to spread about what was actually going on down there. Some say the catacombs were used during Prohibition for bootlegging or other illegal activities like hiding stolen goods. Others think they might have been secret meeting places for political organizations. There are even urban legends about them being used for more sinister purposes. Access to these catacombs is highly restricted. The entrances are mostly sealed off or hidden, and while some parts of the catacombs have been documented, a lot of it is unexplored. The San Jose Mine. This site in the Atacama Desert became infamous in 2010 when a massive cave-in trapped 33 miners underground for over 2 months. They were trapped more than 2,300 feet underground, finding themselves in this cramped, dark space with no direct access to the surface. The heat down there must have been intense, and they had very limited ventilation. For the miners, every minute underground was a struggle for survival. The rescue operation was huge. It involved drilling through thick rock to reach the trapped miners. There were 3 separate drilling teams. Corporations from around the world aided in the rescue. Even NASA was involved. The rescue team used a specially designed capsule named the Phoenix to bring the miners up to the surface, but it took a while. The miners spent 69 grueling days underground before the first man was finally brought to the surface. But in the end, all 33 miners miners survived. Now, for some reason, there are tons of conspiracy theories surrounding the Denver International Airport. On the surface, it's just an airport, but there are said to be all sorts of little nods to the Illuminati throughout the place. And there are also the underground tunnels. There are some conspiracy theories about these tunnels not just being used for transporting luggage, but that they house secret bunkers for the world's elite. Others think the tunnels might even contain alien bodies. Now, why is it that there are all these crazy rumors about the Denver airport? Well, some people have pointed out that it has a bit of an unusual design. The airport has also a number of paintings and sculptures that a lot of people find unsettling or cryptic. There's a huge horse statue that's said to be a harbinger of doom. It's often referred to as a Blucifer by locals and folks online. The Cheddar Caves in Cheddar Gorge in England may not have the most ominous name, but there have been some pretty unsettling finds down there over the years. This gorge is the biggest in the country, about 400 feet deep, and it's been around for roughly 1 million years. It started forming back in the last ice age. Beneath the gorge, there's a huge network of caves where there have been some pretty cool archaeological finds. It seems like the Cheddar Caves were used by humans for around 40,000 years, so you can imagine how many crazy finds there are down there. The most famous find from these caves is the Cheddar Man, the oldest skeleton ever found in Britain. Discovered in 1903, Cheddar Man lived about 10,000 years ago. But there's some even more interesting stuff than that, and also a bit creepy. Scientists have found bones in the caves that are about 13,000 years old, with marks indicating that they were eaten, and not by wild animals. Yeah, as if prehistoric life wasn't horrific enough already, it looks like people were eating each other too, which is not that surprising, but it's still unsettling. The bones showed signs of having been scraped clean, which means the people they belonged to were likely consumed. The Presidential Emergency Operations Center, or PEOC, is allegedly located beneath the east wing of the White House in Washington, D.C. It was designed to provide a secure, fortified location for the president and other important politicians in case of an emergency. The PEOC was built deep underground, far below the White House, and is built to withstand all sorts of threats, including nuclear attacks. It's heavily fortified with thick walls and reinforced construction so that it can withstand the most extreme conditions, and it's got everything needed to carry out operations for an extended period of time. There are communication systems, supplies, and of course living quarters. It's designed to be the last line of defense in a situation where the world above has basically become hell on earth. Aside from the basic stuff I just outlined, we really don't know much else about what's down there, as most of the details are understandably classified, but the facility has been used before, most famously during the September 11th attacks, and there are actually photographs of George Bush meeting with members of the National Security Council down there. The Deep Underground Command Center. It's not 100% certain if this place even exists. It was proposed back in the 60s, but we don't know if it ever actually got built. The Deep Underground Command Center, often referred to as the Deep Underground Command and Control Site, or the DUCCS, was a US military project proposed back in 1962. The idea was to build a massive underground facility deep beneath the surface, between 3,000 to 4,000 feet down, designed to withstand a nuclear attack. The plan included two versions of the facility, a smaller one for 50 people and a larger one that could be expanded to accommodate around 300. The idea was to make sure that the facility could resist explosions from weapons as powerful as 200 to 300 megatons if detonated at the surface, or about 100 megatons if they penetrated deeper. It was pitched to President Kennedy pretty much right before he was killed. The project never moved past the planning stages. At least that's what's been said publicly. Did you know that the Pioneer Square neighborhood in Seattle was built over an old part of the city, which is still there? Back in the late 19th century, Seattle was still pretty young, but growing fast. The city was originally built at sea level, which meant that when it rained, it flooded a lot. This was especially a problem in the area known as Pioneer Square, which was the city's business district at the time. Now, despite all this flooding, it was actually a fire that did this part of the city in. In 1889, a fire started in a glue shop, and the fire quickly turned into a massive blazing inferno that destroyed large chunks of the neighborhood. After the fire, city planners decided to elevate the streets. They raised the level of the sidewalks and the building's ground floors, but the old street level was still left underneath. So as a result, you had this underground city, which actually continued being used mostly for illegal activity. But eventually the streets fell into disuse and were closed off, mostly forgotten by the general public. Today though, parts of this underground city have been preserved, and you can take guided tours through the old tunnels and buildings. Pretty cool, getting to see the remnants of old storefronts and even some of the original cobblestone streets. But supposedly, as you can probably guess, these underground streets are said to be teeming with paranormal activity. Mount Shasta is a massive and beautiful peak in Northern California, and it's been the center of some pretty wild stories over the years, including one about a hidden underground city beneath it, according to legend anyway. Some versions of the story go that this city is home to some advanced and enlightened civilization, maybe extraterrestrials, or possibly remnants of an ancient lost civilization like Lemuria. Lemuria is sort of like Atlantis, a mythical continent that supposedly sank into the ocean. The idea is that the survivors of Lemuria took refuge in the tunnels under Mount Shasta. There's also been a lot of UFO sightings around this mountain, which only adds to the rumors that something strange is happening there. One of the most famous stories comes from a prospector named J.C. Brown. In 1904, while he was searching for gold, he claimed to have stumbled on a cave that led down about 11 miles. Inside, he said that he discovered an entire underground city filled with gold and other ancient artifacts as well, like shields, weapons, and even the remnants of giant mummified humanoids, some up to 10 feet tall. He didn't talk about the discovery until years later when he shared his story with a man named John C. Root. Root organized a search team to find this cave, but on the day they were supposed to meet up, Brown vanished. No one has ever seen or heard from him again.
Starting off our list today, we have the underground of Portland, Oregon in the United States, which I had no idea existed until I started doing research for this video. As it turns out, in 1908, underneath the city of Portland, tunnels were used for, well, illegal activities. While those in the know accessed the tunnels through secret entrances, those who weren't so lucky often entered them through trap doors, hidden all over the city. These less fortunate entrances were placed in the ground floors of hotels, in alleyways, and in bars. Those who fell through them would often fall directly into a cage, and they would either be robbed or taken captive. The problem grew significantly between 1850 and 1941. The tunnels known as the Shanghai tunnels were intricately connected catacombs, extending for miles underneath the city, making them perfect for transporting people against their will to hidden locations where they were either sold into slavery or adult work. Today you can tour the dingy underground of Portland's Shanghai tunnels at a cost of just $15 per person. But considering the poor reviews posted on TripAdvisor, I'd say if you want to see them that badly, you're better off finding a way to explore them yourself. But also don't do that, because as I said, they go on for miles and you could easily get lost in them and you might lose your life. So maybe just pay the $15.
Next up, we have the Edinburgh Vaults. This place was as ominous back in the day as it looks. As Obi-Wan Kenobi would say, "You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy." Do you get that reference, Anna?
No, I don't get any references.
Hannah doesn't get our references, we don't get hers. It's an interesting dichotomy. Anyway, beneath the streets of Scotland's capital are a series of underground chambers and tunnels that were constructed in the late 18th century. They were built for storage and workshops for businesses operating above ground. But because of poor construction and drainage issues, the vaults quickly fell into disuse and they became a forgotten underworld beneath the city, but not forgotten to everyone. The dimly lit chambers were the perfect place for all sorts of nefarious activity. The vaults became this haven for all this illicit activity, gambling, smuggling, body snatching. These body snatchers were known as resurrectionists. They'd store corpses down there before selling them off to medical schools and God knows who else. Sounded like quite the party there below Scotland.
Next up, we've got the underground city of Havre, Montana, located in, well, Havre, Montana, not to be mistaken with Hannah, Montana. You know who that is, right?
I do know Hannah. I'm familiar with.
You never watched Hannah Montana?
I haven't watched it, no.
Oh my god! It's known as Havre beneath the streets. The winding underground catacombs are made up of a series of passageways, as they often are, and they were filled with thriving businesses. There were saloons, laundromats, dental offices, drugstores, and even a brothel. For an underground city, it was pretty above board. Well, kind of, but also not really, because along with a few legitimate businesses, the tunnels were also used for the transportation of alcohol during Prohibition, as well as to transport young women taken from their families to be sold into the trade. What was once a secret city that no one was supposed to know about is now open to the public for tours, and unlike the Shanghai tunnels of Portland, the Havre beneath the streets tours actually have some pretty good reviews. So next time you're in Portland, think about checking them out.
During the Cold War, a massive underground bomb shelter was built in Beijing. It's sometimes referred to as the Underground Great Wall, having been built for military defense. The place is incredible. It was built between 1969 and 79 in preparation for the looming threat of nuclear war at the time. It spans around 85 square kilometers, or about 33 square miles, and it was designed to house up to 300,000 people. The complex includes this web of tunnels connecting various parts of the city, from residential neighborhoods to government buildings. It's got everything a small city would need too: hospitals, schools, theaters, and shops, a roller skating rink. The complex even had its own water wells and ventilation systems. There were even places designated for growing food. Access points to this underground city were hidden in plain sight. At one time, there were about 90 entrances hidden in shops along the main street. Only a few entrances remain today, though, but you can visit. There are tours of certain areas of the underground city, which has been described as dark, damp, and genuinely eerie, which is to be expected. I mean, it's an underground city. What do you want?
Next up on our list today, we have Moscow's hidden underground and the Library of Ivan the Terrible, which Russia has done an incredibly good job at keeping secret because, well, it hasn't been found yet. The library is located somewhere in Moscow's underground labyrinth of tunnels and secret passageways. While at one point the search for the library and all of its priceless artifacts and pieces of literature was ongoing, it was called off due to the damage being caused to the city's foundations. Now, while excavators didn't manage to locate the library, they didn't come up entirely empty-handed. In the tunnels located underneath two of the Kremlin towers located in Moscow's city center, explorers found the dungeons in which Ivan the Terrible had imprisoned Prince Andrei Khovansky. The punishments the prince and other prisoners would have endured during their time being held captive would have included being bound, gagged, and chained to a stone wall, as well as other gruesome things. While the search for the library has been put on pause, many people, including myself, are still holding out hope that it will one day be found. Because history is cool, and that would be pretty neat.
The underground city of Naours in France. Naours is a small village in northern France with a population of about 1,200, but just east of the small village is an underground city, which at one time had a population about 3 times bigger. The caves were carved by hand in the Middle Ages. The tunnels and chambers extend for about 2 miles, and there are over 300 rooms. It was the perfect safe haven for villagers seeking shelter from invasions. It's a pretty dark and gloomy place, but people could stay hidden down there for long periods. There were areas for livestock, there were water wells, places for the community to gather. There were also bakeries And in order to keep the underground complex hidden, the chimneys from the ovens were routed through the chimneys in homes and buildings above ground. The complex was rediscovered in 1887, and during both World Wars, soldiers occupied it. In World War I, a lot of soldiers, particularly from the Australian and British forces, left behind graffiti and carvings, which at the time would be considered vandalism, but looking back now, it's pretty fascinating to see all the names and dates and messages from soldiers etched into the walls.
Next up, we have the UK's secret underground city built during the Cold War era between 1940 and 1942, and fully equipped with a 4 million kilometer long labyrinth of bomb-proof tunnels and communication lines. The tunnels were built 130 feet below ground for the purpose of protecting the government and the people of London in the case of a nuclear strike on London, and they came fully equipped with bunkers, food, and medical supplies. When the nuclear strike never came and the government realized just how much money they had spent on something they were never going to use, they converted the tunnels into UK government top secret bunkers where Ian Fleming, believed to be the inspiration for James Bond, worked for some time. While the majority of the tunnels remain off limits to civilians, there are some tours that provide access to certain underground bunkers, which, you know, it's still pretty cool in my opinion.
Throughout Europe, there are mysterious tunnels called Erdstall tunnels. We still don't know exactly what these tunnels were used for or who built them. Most date back to the Middle Ages and are typically narrow and low, often just wide enough for one person to crawl through. Inside, you can find chambers and sometimes steps or seating areas carved into the rock. You'll also commonly find small, tight openings connecting different sections. Anyone passing through needs to squeeze and wriggle their way between the chambers. Some historians think these tunnels may have been used as hiding places for villagers during raids or war. They could have also just been storage spaces. A lot of historians also think they may have been used for religious or spiritual practices, but there aren't a whole lot of artifacts found in these tunnels, so it's hard to pinpoint their exact purpose, and I think that's kind of cool.
Next up, we have the ATM Cave located in Belize, a sacred place for the Mayans during the Classic period, which took place from 250 to 909 AD. I would say there are two main things that the Mayans were known for. One being incredibly intelligent, creating highly advanced calendars and amazing artwork and architecture. And two, being incredibly brutal. They often partook in some pretty gruesome practices, many of which involved the sacrifice of the young. Sacrifices which often took place inside of sacred caves that the Mayans believed were the entrance to the underworld where the gods lived. Caves like the ATM in Belize. I take it you see where I'm going with this. People have died there in some pretty unsavory ways. The most famous person to die in the cave is not someone who we know the name of, but it's someone who a lot of people go there to see. It is the Crystal Maiden, whose skewed limbs and bones became crystallized into the rock over many centuries. If you would like to visit the historical site, you can, but unfortunately due to an incident in which a person dropped their camera inside of the cave and damaged one of the artifacts, cameras are strictly forbidden from joining the experience, but that's okay, because live in the moment. Go see dead people inside of a cave.
This final one is nuts. Not only is it a full-on underground city, but it's a multi-level underground city. And it's ancient. I'm talking about Derinkuyu underground city in Turkey. This underground city extends about 280 feet below the surface and could accommodate up to 20,000 people, along with their livestock and food supplies. It was constructed around the 8th to 7th centuries BCE, and it's a pretty incredible feat of engineering with multiple levels connected by this maze of tunnels. Each level had its own purpose. There were living quarters, kitchens, storage rooms, chapels, ventilation shafts were placed to keep the air fresh, and wells to make sure there was a steady supply of water. One of the coolest things about it, though, is its defense system. The city had massive stone doors that could be rolled across passageways to block invaders, and the doors could only be opened from the inside. The city had communal spaces, there were areas for worship, there have also been rooms that archaeologists think could have been schools. People were able to survive down here for long periods of time. Underground cities are just cool. Entire networks of hidden passages and hideouts carved deep underground. From Coober Pedy in Australia to ancient cities that sank into the sea, these are amazing hidden underground cities that shouldn't exist. Alright, let's start with Coober Pedy. That name sounds completely made up, and it's going to sound even nuttier when I describe it. If you've never heard of this place, it's this wild little town in the Australian outback, which fits. Where else in the world would you find a town named Coober Pedy? So people lived underground here, and there's a very good reason for that. The place is absolutely scorching in the summer, pushing 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius and well beyond. So if you were above ground all the time, you'd pretty much melt. But they figured out a pretty cool workaround. Build living spaces underground. You'll find that a lot of the town is dug into the rock. And here's how all of this started. So back in 1915, a young guy named William H. Smith was just casually messing around looking for gold when he came across this huge load of opals. From then on, people came from all over to mine for opal, and pretty soon Coober Pedy turned into the opal capital of the world. So miners and their families started digging out homes to escape the brutal heat, and these homes became known as dugouts. Today, about 60% of the people still live in these underground homes, even though the town is modernized now, but it works. The ground in Coober Pedy is soft sandstone, and when you dig into it, the temperature stays cool in the summer and warm in the winter. It's like a natural air conditioner. So yeah, Coober Pedy is one of the most bizarre but practical places you'll ever hear about. And the town has all the usual amenities too. You got schools, hospitals, even a golf course. People come here for tourism as well. You can sleep in a hotel carved into the ground, which would definitely be a unique experience. Now we jump to Iran with Kish Underground City. Kish Island in the Persian Gulf has a fascinating underground area known as the Kairos, which dates back over 2,500 years ago. It was originally built as a water management system and has been turned into an attraction that blends history with modern tourism. The whole system is carved into the island's coral stone. And back in the day, it served a practical purpose. It was used to store and manage water. But as time went on, it became more than just a water reserve. People started using it as shelter from the intense heat on the surface. Today, the underground city is being renovated and it's becoming a bit of a tourist destination. It's huge. We're talking over 100,000 square feet of space, and they're building restaurants, shops, and other modern amenities down there. People can check out how ancient Persians figured out how to live comfortably in the desert long before air conditioning was even a thought. It's kind of mind-blowing to think about how these ancient people were able to create something so functional and yet so beautiful out of just stone and earth. Next up, we have Ozkonak Underground City in Turkey. This one is cool because it's literally carved into volcanic rock. The city was rediscovered in 1972, and since then, archaeologists have been uncovering more and more of it. It has 4 levels open to the public, but there are 6 more levels that remain untouched. The city was used as a hideout, mostly for protection from invaders back in the day. What's really interesting about this place, too, are all the defenses. For example, the tunnels have these holes in the ceilings that could be used to drop hot sand on any invaders trying to break in. It's one of those places that gives you a real sense of how creative and resourceful people were when they needed to protect themselves. It's also massive, stretching out far enough to house up to 60,000 people if they needed to hide for a while. So if you're ever in Turkey, definitely add this place to your list of destinations. Next up is the Atlit Yam underwater city off the coast of Israel. This one is insane because it's submerged beneath the Mediterranean Sea. Archaeologists discovered it in 1984, and it's believed to be over 7,000 years old. It's one of the oldest submerged cities ever found, or what's left of it anyway. And it gives us a fascinating glimpse into life long before we even started thinking about building cities. Atlit Yam was home to early farming and fishing communities. They built their homes out of simple materials like mud and sticks, and the people lived off the resources of the sea. But something happened around 6900 BCE, possibly rising sea levels or a huge tidal wave, which caused the village to sink into the sea. And today the ruins lie beneath the waves, where divers and archaeologists have been able to recover artifacts like tools, pottery, and even human remains. It's a window into another time when people were just starting to figure out how to build civilizations, and that is really cool. Leptis Magna is another fascinating city. This is an ancient Roman one in modern-day Libya. It was one of the most important cities in the Roman Empire, founded around the 7th century BCE. It became especially important when Emperor Septimius Severus, who was born nearby, made it his hometown. During its peak, Leptis Magna had everything: grand amphitheaters, bathhouses, marketplaces, and temples. The cool thing about Leptis Magna is that it's incredible at being preserved. For centuries, it was buried under sand, and no one really knew it was there. It wasn't until the 1920s that archaeologists unearthed it, and when they did, they found a near-perfect example of Roman architecture. Today, it's one of the best preserved Roman sites you can visit. You can wander around the Grand Theater, the Basilica, and the marketplace, and it'll make you feel like you're in ancient Rome. At least I'd have to presume. I've never actually been there. I'd love to go, though. I mean, some of these buildings are over 2,000 years old. Moving on to Beijing, China. There's a really cool underground city that was built during the Cold War. The Chinese government built it as a nuclear fallout shelter, and it's huge, spanning 85 square kilometers or about 33 square miles. It's a secret underground world, complete with living spaces, shops, hospitals, and schools, all connected by tunnels. The plan was that in case of a nuclear attack, the population would hide in the tunnels and live there for as long as they'd need to. What I find extra interesting about this underground city is how it would have been accessed. Some of the tunnels were hidden in plain sight. They had entrances inside shops, restaurants, and alleyways, so if something went down, people would have a quick escape route. The crazy thing is that even though it was built for such a grim purpose, today you can actually go on guided tours of the Beijing underground city. It's said to be pretty eerie down there, but incredible without a doubt. Havre is a small town in Montana that has its own underground tunnels, built way back in the early 1900s. The tunnels were used for all sorts of shady things. During the Prohibition era, the tunnels served as a route for illegal alcohol to be smuggled into town, and they were also home to secret bars, gambling spots, and even a brothel. Today, you can visit these underground tunnels with the Havre Beneath the Streets tour. It looks like a pretty fun time. I mean, it's two really cool things: cowboys and hidden underground cities. Even though the tunnels were used for a lot of sneaky businesses, they also gave people shelter from the harsh Montana winters. But I bet that if those walls could talk, they'd have some pretty wild stories to tell. Portland's got its own version of shady underground tunnels too, known as the Shanghai tunnels. These tunnels were built in the 19th century and were used by human traffickers to, well, Shanghai people, meaning they'd kidnap them and force them to work on ships. Pretty messed up, but what makes these tunnels so interesting is how they stretch beneath the city. There were trap doors in places like bars and hotels, and the story goes that baddies would use them to snatch people and drag them into the tunnels where they'd be taken off to sea. Today, the Shanghai tunnels are a dark and eerie reminder of a really awful time in Portland's history. You can go on a tour, which is a bit creepy, I gotta imagine, but also kind of fascinating because it gives you a real sense of how these people lived and worked in secret. And of course, it comes as no surprise that people say the place is haunted. Vegas is all glitz and glamour, right? But beneath the surface lies another world, the Las Vegas tunnels. These tunnels were originally built for flood control, but over time they became home to a whole underground community. It's a tough place to live. It's dark, damp, and very dangerous, but for a lot of homeless people, it's safer to be in this community underground than alone on the street. Plus, it gives them shelter from the scorching desert heat. The tunnels are really long, stretching for miles beneath the city. It's quite the contrast to the luxury hotels and casinos above. It's a side of the city that most people just never see. The underground city of Noshabad is found in Iran's central desert. The city's name, Noshabad, meaning city of cold, tasty water, comes from a Sasanian king who once visited the region. After drinking water from a local well, he found it especially refreshing and clear. He then ordered a city to be built around it, which became known as Noshabad. The underground city was built to escape the harsh heat and to protect the townsfolk from raids. The city had an extensive network of underground passages, allowing people to hide and move around without being seen. The passages connected different parts of the city, making it possible for people to live underground for days if they needed to. The underground city had 3 levels, designed so that the upper levels could be more easily defended. The curving passages made it easier to ambush enemies, and there were hidden traps. Fun, like rotating stones that would fall into deep pits if triggered.
This year, I went into Doong, which is the world's largest cave. It's this massive opening, 6 miles of underground cave.
Hello? Someone from the team discovered a doorway that leads to one of these caves. The more they dug, the more they found.
Ancient underground cities are full of mystery, legends, and dark secrets. From hidden lairs where dark rituals took place to criminal underworlds full of human corpses. These are ancient underground cities that were sealed to keep the evil inside. The Hellfire Caves are a series of man-made tunnels and caverns in Buckinghamshire, England, stretching about 260 meters underground. The caves were created in the 18th century and were used by a secretive club founded by Sir Francis Dashwood, which included influential figures like William Hogarth and John Wilkes. Though Benjamin Franklin wasn't a member, he was also a close friend of Dashwood and visited the caves several times. Apparently. The club operated under various names, such as the Brotherhood of St. Francis Wycombe and the Order of the Friars of St. Francis of West Wycombe. Their motto, "Do what thou wilt," kinda hints at their hedonistic lifestyle. Members were rumored to engage in these wild, pagan-like rituals. They were said to hold feasts that included excessive drinking and debauchery. Locals would gossip about the devil worshipping supposedly going on down there. Some even whispered about them practicing human sacrifices. By the early 1760s, the club had faded away, but urban legends about the caves continued. One of the most popular stories involves the ghost of Suki, a young maid who was accidentally killed during a prank. People also claim to have seen her ghost wandering the caves. Another legend mentions the spirit of Paul Whitehead, a former steward of the Hellfire Club, who's also said to haunt the tunnels. The Edinburgh Vaults, also known as the South Bridge Vaults, are a series of chambers beneath the South Bridge in Edinburgh, Scotland. This bridge was built in the late 18th century, completed in 1788, and originally served as a way to connect different parts of the city. For about 30 years, the vaults were used for different businesses. There were taverns and workshops for cobblers, but the vaults were never properly sealed against water, which meant they began to flood soon after opening. By 1795, businesses started abandoning the space, and the vaults quickly became a hangout for homeless and criminals. Illegal gambling dens started cropping up, and there were even rumors that body snatchers started stashing corpses down there. As the Industrial Revolution changed the landscape of Edinburgh, the area nearby turned into a slum, and the vaults then became cramped living quarters for many poor families. The conditions were horrible, as you can imagine. I mean, living in a tiny room with 10 other people, no sunlight, and a stench that combined stale waste with fish oil lamps. It's no wonder robberies and killings became so common. The vaults were eventually closed down as early as 1835 or as late as 1875. And they were mostly forgotten until the 1980s, when a former Scottish rugby player, Norrie Rowan, stumbled on a tunnel leading to them. Norrie helped a Romanian rugby player escape from the secret police through this very tunnel during the Romanian Revolution. I want to know more about that, but that's probably another video. The Paris Catacombs are, of course, one of the most famous underground sites in the world, and they definitely have a reputation for being a little creepy. Beneath the city of Paris lies a vast network of tunnels and chambers filled with the bones of over 6 million people. It's one of the most macabre tourist destinations in the world, but most of the tunnels are off limits, with many believing they were sealed off to keep something sinister contained. The catacombs started out as limestone quarries in the late 18th century, but when Paris's cemeteries started getting overcrowded and then started causing health issues, city officials decided to move some of the bones underground. They transferred remains from several different graveyards into these tunnels, stacking them up, kind of creating these artistic displays of skulls and femurs. Urban legends say that the catacombs are haunted, that lost spirits roam the tunnels. And not just the spirits of people who were interred here, but people who have wandered too far into the catacombs and never found their way out again. Noshabad underground city, located near the town of Noshabad in Iran, is a site that dates back to the Sasanian area, around 5th century CE. It's a massive underground complex that stretches over 3 kilometers and is made of a series of tunnels, chambers, and passageways that were used for different purposes. There were living quarters, storage, and places of worship. The city was carved out of the soft volcanic rock, making it easier to create intricate designs and rooms. What's really intriguing is that Noshabad was built not just for shelter, but as a refuge from invaders. When threats loomed above ground, residents could escape into the subterranean labyrinth, which was cool and dark, perfect for hiding out. But here's where it gets a little creepy. Some say that the tunnels were also used to house prisoners, and that eerie happenings have been reported by those who've ventured down there. As the story goes, some believe that the spirits of those who were imprisoned still linger in the shadows. The Terracotta Army, discovered in 1974 by a group of farmers digging a well in China, is an incredible archaeological find and a source of some pretty spooky legends. The massive pit is filled with thousands of life-sized clay soldiers, horses, and chariots, all made over 2,000 years ago to protect the tomb of King Shi Huang, China's first emperor. The idea was that these clay warriors would accompany him into the afterlife and fend off any threats. And many scholars believe that the Terracotta Army was never meant to be seen by the living. For centuries, it was just a myth, hidden away beneath the earth. The emperor's followers worked for more than 36 years to create this elaborate tomb, and the fact that it was disturbed has led to tales about the massive underground tomb being haunted. After the discovery, things turned dark for the farmers. Apparently, their village was relocated due to the increased attention from archaeologists and tourists, and many of them faced hardships like illnesses and financial trouble. In the pits surrounding the warriors, skeletal remains were also found, including those of women who were thought to be the emperor's concubines for the afterlife. This has led to even more rumors about the site being cursed. Tomin Cave, also called the Cave of the Twins, is located in a nature reserve in Israel, right on the edge of the Jerusalem mountains. The cave is pretty interesting because it's packed with archaeological finds from different times in history. Researchers have found human bones, old weapons, and coin hoards in there. There's also evidence that the cave had an alabaster quarry dating back to the Middle Bronze Age, but what's really cool is that it might have been used for necromancy rituals during the late Roman period. Between 2010 and 2016, archaeologists found over 120 intact oil lamps inside this cave. Most of these lamps are from the 2nd to 4th century CE, and they were purposely placed in narrow crevices along the walls or under debris. Some spots had clusters of these oil lamps mixed in with weapons, pottery from earlier times, and even human skulls. This all hints that the cave could have been used for rituals related to communicating with the dead. The idea is that people were lighting these lamps to connect with spirits of the underworld, trying to talk to the deceased or predict the future. It turns out using caves for rituals was a common practice back in the Roman and Byzantine days. Historical texts even mention cases of witch trials happening in caves like this. Beneath the streets of Columbia, South Carolina, there's a mysterious network of catacombs, and no one really knows for sure what they were built for. These eerie tunnels are completely off limits to the public. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Columbia was booming and extra space was needed, so a series of passages and rooms were constructed under the city. Now, initially intended for practical uses like storage, as time went on, the stories about these catacombs started to shift. They started being used during Prohibition for bootlegging operations or to stash away stolen goods, but the legends didn't even stop there. There are even darker tales that the catacombs may have been used for more sinister things like secret rituals or hideouts for some of the worst criminals in the city. And then you have the fact that nowadays these tunnels are sealed off. A lot of it's off limits, and a lot of them remain unexplored. So, what could be lurking down there? Beneath the streets of Rome lies a vast labyrinth of tunnels and chambers known as the Catacombs. These ancient burial sites date back to the 2nd century and served as the final resting place for early Christians, Jews, and various minority groups during the Roman Empire. While they may not be your typical underground city, the sheer scale and history make them really cool. The catacombs are divided into several key areas, including the Catacombs of San Callisto, the Catacombs of San Sebastiano, and the Catacombs of Priscilla. Each of these locations has intricate tombs adorned with all these beautiful frescoes and sculptures, giving you a bit of a glimpse into the beliefs and lives of those who are buried there. Some of the artworks depict biblical scenes. Others have symbols of faith reflecting the hope of resurrection in a time of persecution. As you wander through these narrow passageways, the atmosphere can feel eerie, no doubt. And there are miles of tunnels filled with remains of over 1 million people, so that definitely adds to the creep factor. Some legends say that the catacombs are haunted, with whispers of the past echoing through the dark corridors. The Bach casemates in Luxembourg are the remnants of this massive fortress built in 693. Over the centuries, this place changed hands multiple times, and with each new ruler, there was some new flair. But it was the Spanish who really got the ball rolling in 1644 by transforming medieval cellars into fortified firearm emplacements. Then in the 1680s, a French engineer stepped in and supercharged the defenses. The Bach casemates became a labyrinth of tunnels over 131 feet deep, or 40 meters. The underground had stables, workshops, kitchens, bakeries. The place was impenetrable too. In 1794, it held off against a 7-month siege. By the late 1800s, though, peace needed to be made, so the Treaty of London led to the fortress's demolition. It took 16 years, but in the process they realized that they couldn't tear down the casemates without affecting the city above, so a section of these tunnels are still standing today. Kaldhara village in India may not be an underground city, but it is very old, abandoned, and supposedly cursed. So what happened to this place? Well, legend has it that a tyrannical prime minister named Salim Singh set his sights on the daughter of the village head. She wasn't into him, but he wasn't the kind of guy to take no for an answer, and he threatened the entire village with dire consequences if they didn't give in to his demands, to, I guess, force this woman to marry him. Now, instead of bowing down to this cruel ruler, the people of Kaldhara packed up and they left. And not just a handful of people, 85 villagers worth of people vanished into the desert, never to be seen again. But they did leave something behind. Before they vanished, they placed a curse on the village, declaring that no one would ever be able to settle there again. And today, Kaldhara still stands, but locals warn that anyone who tries to spend the night there may not make it out alive. A sprawling city hiding under the streets of Seattle. Is there a secret underground world in Los Angeles? And what's going on at Disney World? These are hidden underground cities in America. There's a whole abandoned underground city beneath Seattle. And no, I'm not just talking about a system of tunnels. This is an actual city that people used to live and work in. Back in 1889, the Great Seattle Fire tore through downtown, leveling almost everything in its path. The city decided to rebuild, but instead of just throwing up new buildings, they did something kind of different. They raised the entire street level. They dumped soil and debris between buildings, creating this elevated ground floor. The problem was that some business owners had already started rebuilding before the city's plans were finalized, so their brand new ground floors ended up underground. So instead of tearing them down, the old sidewalks and storefronts got sealed off, leaving behind this maze of hidden streets and alleyways beneath Pioneer Square. By 1907, city officials condemned the underground, worried it was turning into this breeding ground for crime and disease, because yes, people still went down there. For years, it sat abandoned and forgotten, until the 60s, when a historian named Bill Speidel turned it into a tourist attraction. Today, you can actually take a guided tour through these eerie, half-lit tunnels and see the old storefronts still standing there frozen in time. And of course, because it's a creepy underground city, there are plenty of ghost stories as well. Los Angeles might be famous for its glitzy Hollywood lights, but beneath the surface, some believe there's something far older and stranger hiding in the dark. In the 1930s, mining engineer George Warren Shufeldt became obsessed with a legend passed down by the Hopi natives, which spoke of this ancient civilization of lizard people. Not the type of reptilian shapeshifters we think of today with conspiratorial stuff. This was a race that were said to have feared the lizard, and these people supposedly built this massive underground city under what is now LA 5,000 years ago. This subterranean city, allegedly designed in the shape of a giant lizard, supposedly stretched from the northeast LA all the way to the central library downtown, with secret passageways leading to the ocean, allowing seawater to push fresh air into the chambers. And Sheffield claimed to have developed a device that he called a radio X-ray, which he used to detect underground tunnels, and maybe even more exciting, if you're a greedy little troll like me, a treasure room beneath Fort Moore Hill. I just hear the word gold, and gold. Anyway, he convinced the city to let him drill a 350-foot shaft in 1934, promising that gold artifacts would be found. But before he could reach anything, the dig was abandoned because of cave-in concerns and funding issues. After that, Sheffield disappeared from the public eye, dying in 1957, without ever proving his claims. But winding things back a little, right before Sheffield was about to start the dig, a local psychic named Edith Eldon Robinson claimed to have had a vision of, quote, a vast city in mammoth tunnels extending to the seashore. Just a coincidence, or was something really buried beneath Los Angeles, something we were never meant to find? Disney World. Don't it just make you want to smile? It's the most magical place on earth, they say, but what a lot of people don't know is that there's a whole hidden world under the park. Down below, there's this massive network of tunnels called utilidors, and these underground passages let cast members, move around the park without being seen by guests. And think about it, have you ever seen someone dressed as Mickey Mouse casually walking through Tomorrowland on a smoke break? I haven't, because I've never been to Disney World or Land or whatever, but for those of you who have you ever seen that? Probably not, because Disney is all about maintaining the illusion, and these tunnels make sure of that. They also house a bunch of behind-the-scenes operations, from trash collection, costume changes. The tunnels are so big that they're actually considered the first floor of the park, with what we see at ground level actually being the second floor. But is that all there is to it? Of course not. That's not what we do in this channel. We always take things a step further, and with a secret underground system this big, there are always urban legends and rumors. Some say there are hidden rooms used for secretive Disney business, that late at night in those dark tunnels beneath the park, things get a little less family friendly. Buried deep within Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado is one of the most secure underground facilities in the world. Built during the Cold War, this bunker was designed to survive a nuclear attack and keep the US government running. The facility is buried under 2,000 feet of granite, protected by blast doors that weigh 25 tons each. Inside, there are multiple buildings sitting on giant springs designed to absorb shock from explosions. But this place isn't just a bunker, it's an entire underground city. It has its own power plant, water reservoirs, and even a subway system for moving people around. Officially, it was the headquarters of NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, but over the years, rumors started spreading about what else might be going on down there, and some believe it's still in use as a top secret command center. Others say it's connected to an even deeper underground network that stretches across the country. Whatever the case, if you're looking for a place to ride out the apocalypse, this would be a solid choice. If the government ever had to disappear overnight, they'd probably head straight to Mount Weather. This underground city, found in Virginia's Blue Ridge Mountains, is one of the most classified government facilities in America, originally built during the Cold War as a nuclear bunker. It's meant to house top government officials in case of an emergency, and again, this place is a full-on underground metropolis. It has office buildings, a hospital, a fire department, even its own zip code. So if you're not in the government's VIP list though, then you suck, and you'll probably never see it in person. The entire site is heavily guarded too, and whatever happens inside is classified. The conspiracy crowd, of course, has some wild theories about Mount Weather. Could it be where the government keeps files on every American citizen? Is it possible it's connected to a larger network of underground bases, including Area 51? Is this place really just for government officials, or are there secret tunnels leading to underground bunkers for the ultra-rich? I think that's probably the case, especially based on what's going on lately. Whatever the case though, if the world ever goes south, don't expect an invite to this place. Washington, D.C. has no shortage of secrets, but one of the strangest involves an abandoned tunnel system hidden beneath L'Enfant Plaza. Originally part of an old underground trolley system, these tunnels were built in the 1940s, but later abandoned when the city moved to a more modern subway system. Unlike other abandoned tunnels though, these ones are sealed off so tightly that even urban explorers struggle to get in. So what's in there? Well, some think not much, that it's just another forgotten piece of infrastructure, but others think the tunnels may still be operating. Given DC's history of secret bunkers and underground facilities, it wouldn't be too surprising if there's more going on under the surface than we're being told. After all, if you were going to hide something important, wouldn't an old, sealed-off tunnel system be the perfect place? Back in 1909, the Arizona Gazette published a story about an alleged discovery deep within the Grand Canyon. It was an underground city that looked like something straight out of ancient Mesoamerica. According to the article, explorers found this series of tunnels that were filled with all these mysterious artifacts. There were giant statues and what looked like Egyptian-style hieroglyphics on the walls. The Smithsonian was supposedly involved, but here's where things get a little sketchy. If you ask them today, they'll tell you that they have no record of this ever happening. And while it's easy to chalk this story up as a hoax for that very reason, some people still wonder if the government covered it up, either to protect an important historical find or to hide something even bigger. There are even theories that the Grand Canyon itself may have once been home to an ancient advanced civilization on a bigger scale. You probably don't think of warehouses and data centers as something secretive, but Missouri is home to some of the biggest underground storage facilities in the world. Carved into old limestone mines, these massive underground spaces stretch for miles and are used from everything from cold storage to government records. Places like Subtropolis, yes, that is its actual name, are so large that they have their own roads and even postal addresses. Some of these underground facilities are open for business, but others are more mysterious. Who really knows what's hidden in the deepest sections? One theory is that these underground spaces are connected to secret government bunkers. Sitting beneath the luxurious Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia is one of America's best-kept Cold War secrets. Built in the 1950s, this underground bunker was designed to house Congress in case of nuclear war. It had dormitories, a cafeteria, a medical clinic, and even a TV studio to broadcast emergency messages. For decades, it stayed hidden in plain sight, disguised as part of the resort's conference center, until a journalist exposed it in 1992. And after that, the government decommissioned it, but the bunker is still there. You can even take a tour of it today. And based on some of the images I've looked at, it looks like kind of like the back rooms. But of course, with one Cold War bunker revealed, the question is, where did they move Congress's new emergency hideout? If you've ever been to the Denver International Airport, you know it's got some seriously weird vibes to it. From the creepy murals to the giant demonic horse statue outside, the place feels like it was designed by a secret society, and some say that it was. The strangest theory about the DIA is that there's this massive underground bunker system hidden beneath it. Officially, the airport does have underground tunnels, but some people believe that they're part of a much larger, top secret complex designed to house government officials and elites in the event of a catastrophe. And some say there's alien stuff going on down there too. Some even claim the bunkers connect to other underground facilities across the country. There's no hard proof, obviously, but when you consider how weirdly over budget the airport was, billions of dollars mysteriously vanished during its construction, it definitely makes you wonder if something's being hidden down there. A lost city might be hiding beneath the pyramids of Giza. Archaeologists may have just found Santa's tomb, and an unknown Egyptian pharaoh's burial site has finally come to light. If these discoveries turn out to be legit, they could completely change what we thought we knew. These are ancient artifacts that were just discovered underground. So this is absolutely nuts. Just a few days back, at the time of this recording, an article came out in The Sun about a crazy discovery at the pyramids of Giza, or rather, under them. Apparently, some researchers are claiming that they have found evidence of this massive hidden city beneath the pyramids. A whole underground network under one of the most famous places on Earth. So using this fancy technology called synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, researchers reportedly found what could be a sprawling city, complete with buildings and maybe even water systems. Now the thing is, not everyone is on board with this discovery. While some are totally hyped about the potential of finding a forgotten city, others think it's just a little too far-fetched. Still, the team behind the find is pushing for more digs to confirm what's beneath the surface. If real, it could totally change what we thought we knew about ancient Egypt, and maybe even the way the pyramids were built. As of right now though, we'll just have to hold out for more information. In Turkey, archaeologists recently dug up a sarcophagus under the Church of St. Nicholas in Demre. It might just be the tomb of the real St. Nicholas, the guy who eventually became the inspiration for Santa Claus. You heard it here first, folks. Santa's coffin has been found. The real St. Nicholas was a 4th century bishop known for his generosity, especially toward children. He lived in what's now Turkey, and over the centuries his legend morphed into the figure we all know today. There's a fun twist to this story though. Back in the 11th century, some Italian merchants allegedly stole his remains and took them to Italy, claiming them as their own. So for a long time, people weren't sure where the real St. Nicholas ended up. But now, with this sarcophagus find, it looks like we might have actually found the real answer. The sarcophagus is made of limestone and has some cool carvings on it that could tell us more about who he was. This could change the whole story, from the man who gave gifts to kids in secret to the red-suited Santa we all love today. In March of 2025, archaeologists made a huge discovery in Egypt, this time in the ancient necropolis of Abydos. They came across a tomb that's believed to belong to a pharaoh no one knew about until now. The tomb, which is around 3,600 years old, was found about 7 meters underground, or about 23 feet. It had clearly been looted over the years, but what was left behind still gave researchers a lot to work with. Abydos is a pretty famous spot for ancient Egyptian burials, so this tomb is kind of a big deal. It's thought to belong to one of 2 pharaohs who are mentioned in some ancient records, but whose actual tombs have never been found. The archaeologists involved in the discovery said, "We have identified the name on the entrance, but much of the text has been damaged. We believe this is the tomb of one of the lesser-known kings who ruled during a fractured time in Egypt's history." End quote. So the second intermediate period, which this tomb was built, was a time when Egypt was divided and dealing with invaders, so finding this tomb could give them new clues about the politics of that specific time. In early 2025, archaeologists made a pretty wild discovery in the Judean desert. They came across a pyramid-shaped structure that's about 2,200 years old, along with a bunch of ancient bronze coins and other artifacts. Pyramid, made from carefully cut stones, was found alongside some items that could shed light on the area's ancient history. Now, this pyramid isn't like the big ones we know in Egypt, of course, but it's still a pretty big deal. Some think it might have been a guard tower, others believe it could have been a tomb marker or a monument. Now, on top of that, they found a bunch of bronze coins dating back to the Hellenistic period, a time when Greek rulers like Antiochus IV Epiphanes were in charge. The coins had his name on them, that's how they knew. Now, the Judean desert isn't exactly known for big pyramids, so it's making researchers really rethink how important this area might have been back then. In 2024, a team of archaeologists came across something pretty incredible in Turkey again, a fully intact ancient Roman bakery. The discovery, which was made in Pompeii, has been getting a lot of attention because it's so well preserved. The bakery, which dates back to around 2,000 years ago, was found with large ovens and grinding tools and bread molds still in place. The team found all sorts of neat stuff like this. There were a bunch of clay baking ovens, and some of the molds still had the imprints of loaves or baked there. It's not every day you come across something this well preserved, so researchers were pretty excited. One of the archaeologists said that this was one of the, quote, best preserved ancient bakeries we've ever discovered. It's like stepping back in time to see how bread was made in the Roman Empire. So when we think of ancient Roman archaeology, it's always, it's the big grand buildings, the colosseums, statues, military stuff as well. That's usually what comes to mind, but this find is pretty cool because it gives us a closer look at just the regular day-to-day life in ancient Rome. People were baking bread, going about their lives, and now, thanks to this find, we can see how they did it all. Once again, in March of this year, archaeologists in Egypt made a pretty fascinating discovery, an ancient tomb that's over 3,200 years old. The tomb is believed to belong to a military commander who might have served under the famous pharaoh Ramses III. The site has a burial chamber along with 3 additional rooms, and they found some pretty amazing artifacts there. There was a golden ring with the name of Ramses III on it, along with a bunch of bronze arrowheads and pottery vessels that were inscribed with the name of Pharaoh Horemheb, meaning that this tomb was probably reused over time, which was actually common in ancient Egypt, especially if a tomb became more well-known or valuable after its initial use. What makes this find so interesting is that it gives us a real look at life when Egypt was at its peak. The fact that they found artifacts linked to both Ramses III and Horemheb means the person buried here was probably pretty important. Maybe a top military leader or someone with close ties to the pharaohs. It also shows how connected Egypt's elite were and how much power the military had at the time. Basically, it's another clue in figuring out how ancient Egypt really worked. News of this next find in Texas is also super fresh. Archaeologists digging in the San Esteban rock shelter in Big Bend discovered a treasure trove of ancient weaponry. They found these ancient spear throwers called atlitals. They also found boomerangs. It's insane because it gives us a glimpse into how people were hunting and fighting way back in the day, and I mean before even bows and arrows. They also found some fossilized poop and a pronghorn hide that was carefully tanned. So not only do we get to imagine what these ancient hunters looked like, but now we know what they were eating as well. The best part is researchers planning to put together a full reconstruction of the weaponry, so soon we'll have a pretty good idea of how these ancient tools worked. In 2024, archaeologists in Mexico made a seriously strange discovery under the Temple of the Feathered Serpent at Teotihuacan. They found a tunnel with a miniature landscape. There were tiny mountains and pools of liquid mercury, all dating around 1800 years back. It's wild because liquid mercury isn't something you typically find in ancient sites, especially not in these kinds of quantities. But that's not all. They also found wooden masks, detailed necklaces, and hundreds of these tiny metal spheres, which is giving us a better idea of what the Teotihuacan people believed and how they practiced their rituals. Some experts think the mercury and the mini landscape might represent the underworld, or maybe some kind of sacred connection to the gods. It shows how much the Teotihuacan culture was tied to the cosmos and their environment. What makes this find so important as well is that the Teotihuacan is one of the most powerful and mysterious civilizations in ancient Mexico, and this discovery just adds to the mystery. The use of mercury in rituals, which was considered sacred, gives us new insight into their spiritual life. A reminder that there's still just a lot about these ancient cultures we haven't begun to fully understand. In 2019, archaeologists discovered something pretty incredible in Byblos, Lebanon, a hidden Bronze Age necropolis. The site has 8 tombs cut into rock connected by tunnels. It was found just outside the sacred Acropolis, meaning that it might have been connected to the nearby Temple of the Obelisks. The tombs themselves are pretty fascinating, but the real treasures are the artifacts they found inside. They dug up jewelry, pottery, and weapons. These items were beautiful and show just how skilled the craftsmen were back then, and as researchers keep digging, they're learning more about what life was really like there. In 2024, archaeologists dug up something crazy under Petra, the ancient city in Jordan. They found a hidden tomb with the remains of at least 12 people. It's about 2,000 years old, dating back to when the Nabateans were still around. The tomb gave researchers a peek at how the Nabateans buried their dead. The bodies were found in different positions, which could mean there was some kind of burial ritual involved. The tomb itself was carved straight into the rock, typical Nabatean style, and inside they found pottery, jewelry, and tools, probably stuff meant for the afterlife. The discovery is a big deal because it tells us more about how the Nabateans lived, what they believed, and how they dealt with all the different cultures that were passing through Petra. The artifacts found with the remains show how people from different backgrounds mixed in with the city, which was a major trade hub.
Hidden deep below our feet lie structures that defy explanation. Abandoned, forgotten, and downright impossible. Who built them? Why were they buried? And what are they hiding? Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Hattusa's hidden tunnels. Deep beneath the ancient ruins of Hattusa, the once great capital of the Hittite Empire, lies a maze of tunnels that archaeologists still can't explain. These winding underground passageways, carved with eerie precision, stretch far beyond what anyone would expect from a city built over 3,000 years ago. The tunnel's purpose is a mystery. Were they designed for secret rituals, a desperate last line of defense, or something even more sinister? What's more baffling is the advanced craftsmanship. Smooth walls and perfectly angled turns achieved with tools that shouldn't have existed at the time. Some chambers end abruptly as if they were abandoned mid-construction, while others seem to lead nowhere, like they were deliberately designed to confuse intruders, or perhaps even those who lived there. The lack of any clear explanation has sparked wild theories, from hidden treasure vaults to portals for communicating with the gods. Whatever their purpose, one thing is certain. The deeper you go into Hattusa's labyrinth, the more unsettling it becomes. Why would an empire invest so much effort into constructing tunnels that no one was meant to find? Next, we are talking about the KGB bunkers. Beneath the bustling streets of Moscow lies a shadowy network of abandoned Soviet-era bunkers that could rival the plots of any Cold War spy thriller. Built in total secrecy during the height of Soviet paranoia, these underground megastructures were designed to shield government elites and military commanders from nuclear annihilation, or so the official story goes. But as researchers delve deeper, the unsettling rumors surrounding these bunkers refuse to be silenced. Some say they were more than just shelters, suggesting the KGB used them as laboratories for classified experiments, interrogation chambers, or vaults for storing state secrets too dangerous to see the light of day. Their sheer size is staggering, with rumors of tunnels large enough to house trains and entire command centers buried so deep they remain untouched to this day. What's truly chilling, though, is what is left behind when the bunkers were abandoned. Cryptic maps, locked steel doors that have never been opened, and strange equipment no one can identify. Did the Soviets bury secrets so dark that even history itself couldn't unearth them? Or are these bunkers still guarding something the world is not ready to find? In our number 8 spot today, we have the Damanhur temples. Beneath the quiet foothills of northern Italy lies one of the world's most extraordinary secrets, the Damanhur temples. These vast underground halls, often called the eighth wonder of the world, weren't unearthed by archaeologists. They were built in complete secrecy by a group of modern mystics. Using nothing but hand tools, they carved out sprawling cathedrals filled with breathtaking murals, intricate mosaics, and towering columns, all hidden from the outside world for decades. What makes this story even stranger is their claim that the temples were inspired by ancient knowledge, possibly tapping into long-lost wisdom or even energy fields connected to the earth itself. The details are staggering. One chamber is dedicated to the sun, another to water, with each space aligning perfectly to celestial patterns. And yet, these masterworks were never intended to be found. When authorities finally uncovered the temples, the sheer scope and artistry of the project left them completely stunned, and with far more questions than answers. How did a small community manage to pull off such an architectural feat? And more intriguingly, what ancient inspiration were they channeling to create this hidden masterpiece? Beneath the quiet streets of Taust, a small Spanish town that seems frozen in time, lies a chilling secret that has haunted locals for generations. During a routine construction project, workers unearthed crypts containing mass graves, their origins shrouded in mystery. The skeletal remains, hundreds of them, were eerily arranged, some showing signs of rituals or ancient rites. Abandoned for centuries, these crypts are said to be linked to deadly plagues that swept through the region, wiping out entire communities. Whispers of curses have kept locals far from the site, believing the crypts are a resting place for tormented souls who bring misfortune to those who disturb them. Archaeologists who dared to explore the chambers found more than bones. They uncovered bizarre artifacts and markings that don't match match any known historical records. Some even claim the crypts exude an unexplainable chill, as if the air itself carries the weight of centuries-old sorrow. What really happened here, and why does this cursed underground realm seem determined to hold on to its dark secrets? Next, we are talking about the tunnels of Taos. Beneath the dense Amazonian jungles of Ecuador lies the Taos Tunnels, a sprawling underground labyrinth that stretches for hundreds of miles, and possibly even deeper. These tunnels aren't natural formations, they were carved with such precision that some experts argue they couldn't have been made with the tools of ancient humans. The mystery of Taos has lured adventurers for decades, including Neil Armstrong, who joined an expedition to explore its depths in 1976. Stories from the caves are the stuff of legend. Golden artifacts allegedly discovered there, depicting strange symbols and figures, hinting at a civilization far older and far more advanced than history admits. But that's not all. Locals tell tales of bizarre occurrences near the caves, like mysterious lights and sudden, unexplained disappearances. Could these tunnels be the remnants of a pre-human civilization that vanished without a trace? Or are they evidence of something even more unearthly? Despite years of exploration, large portions of the tunnels remain uncharted, leaving us with more questions than answers, and a haunting sense of what might still be hidden in their endless darkness. Next, we are talking about the Nika Crystal Cave. Deep in the sweltering underground of Chihuahua, Mexico, lies the Nika Crystal Cave, a place so otherworldly it feels like stepping into a parallel universe. Discovered by miners in 2000, this cavern is home to the largest natural crystals ever found, some towering over 30 feet and weighing as much as 55 tons. These translucent giants, formed over hundreds of thousands of years, glisten like frozen beams of light, creating an alien-like landscape that seems almost too surreal to be real. But this breathtaking beauty comes at a price. The cave's extreme conditions, temperatures reaching 136 degrees Fahrenheit and nearly 100% humidity, make it impossible for humans to survive inside for more than a few minutes without specialized suits. Deemed too dangerous to explore further, the cave was abandoned, leaving much of its secrets untouched. Some believe these crystals hold untapped energy or clues to the Earth's geological past. Others say the cavern's unearthly nature hints at something even more mysterious. For now, the Nika Crystal Cave remains sealed off. Next, we are talking about the salt mines of Yekaterinburg. Beneath the industrial city of Yekaterinburg, Russia, lies an abandoned salt mine unlike anything you've ever seen. The walls of this underground labyrinth are streaked with vibrant, multicolored swirls, creating patterns so hypnotic they look like an artist's fever dream. These surreal formations are natural, caused by layers of mineral deposits over millions of years, but the effect is so otherworldly it's hard to believe humans didn't have a hand in it. While the mines are hauntingly beautiful, they are also full of mystery. Locals whisper that during the Soviet era, these caverns may have been repurposed for secret experiments or as hidden bunkers for classified operations. Access to much of the mine is restricted, fueling rumors of forgotten chambers hiding evidence of Soviet ingenuity, or perhaps some darker truths. The unearthly beauty of these salt mines stands in stark contrast to the eerie silence of the abandoned tunnels, leaving visitors with one question: what else might be buried in the shadows of this psychedelic underground world? Next, we are talking about the temples of Ellora. Hidden beneath the surface of Ellora in India lies a wonder that defies logic, an entire complex of subterranean temples carved directly into solid rock. The sheer scale of these structures is overwhelming. Massive halls, intricate sculptures, and towering pillars, all painstakingly chiseled with a precision that modern engineers can't replicate. What's even more astounding is that these temples, built over 1,500 years ago, were created without the aid of advanced tools. To carve just one of these temples, thousands of tons of rock had to be removed, but historians have no clear answers as to how this was achieved or why such monumental effort was dedicated to building underground. Among the 34 temples in the complex, the Kailasa Temple stands out, a single monolithic structure carved from the top down with details so fine they seem impossible for the tools of the time. But the biggest mystery of all? Why were these incredible creations eventually abandoned? Was it a shift in religion, a forgotten disaster, or something even more mysterious? The temples of Ellora remain one of the greatest architectural puzzles in human history, leaving behind questions that may never be answered. In our number 2 spot today, we are talking about the Kaymakli underground city. Beneath the dusty hills of Turkey lies the Kaymakli underground city, a sprawling labyrinth of tunnels and chambers carved directly into the earth. While it's often overshadowed by its more famous neighbor, Derinkuyu, Kaymakli is just as massive and no less mysterious. Built to shelter thousands of people during times of invasion, the city is a marvel of ancient engineering, complete with ventilation shafts, storage rooms, and areas designed to house livestock. But its story takes a darker turn. When archaeologists explored its depths, they discovered locked rooms containing human remains, suggesting some of its inhabitants were trapped and left to die. The eerie layout of the city adds to the unsettling vibe: hidden passages, stone doors that could seal off entire sections, and dead ends designed to confuse anyone who dared enter uninvited. How did such a sophisticated structure, capable of sustaining life underground for months, become forgotten for centuries? And what really happened to the people who never made it out? And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Burlington Bunker. Hidden beneath the rolling countryside of Wiltshire, England, lies the Burlington Bunker, a Cold War era underground city built in total secrecy. Designed to house the British government in the event of nuclear war, this sprawling complex is nothing short of a subterranean marvel. It's said to include 60 miles of tunnels, complete with living quarters, offices, and a fully stocked medical center, and even its own BBC studio to broadcast emergency updates. Yet, despite its purpose as a haven for continuity of government, Burlington was abandoned and sealed off for decades, leaving behind a maze of eerie, dust-covered corridors and silent rooms frozen in time. The true purpose of the bunker remains a topic of debate. Why build a facility of such massive scale only to abandon it? Some theorize it may have been more than just a fallout shelter, possibly housing classified operations or secret experiments hidden from the public eye, with access restricted and much of its history shrouded in mystery. Burlington Bunker stands as a chilling reminder of a time when the threat of annihilation loomed large, and the secrets that might still lie buried within its depths.